Hello, everyone. Global Neurosciences Association welcomes you all to our workshop, Guide to Research for Beginners. I'm Anjali, part of the events committee at GNA. Global Neurosciences Association is an international organization aiming to build a strong global network of students and doctors who are passionate about neurosciences and provide them with opportunities to learn, grow, and research together. GNA provides its members with various opportunities to build their portfolio. Currently, we are looking for global ambassadors to represent their country while building their CV. More information about benefits and expectations of this role can be found in the application form on the chat. We also have a peer-to-peer presentation initiative where you can get an opportunity to present a clinical case or teach a neuroscience topic of your choice with us. You will receive a certificate of teaching and feedback from the attendees that will build your portfolio for residencies in countries like the US and the UK. All you have to do is to fill up the form in the chat, and a member of our team will contact you with further details and guidance. We also have a peer-to-peer presentation FAQ guide linked in our Instagram bio. Another exciting opportunity that we are excited to share is the GNA Research Collaborative. We have 12 ongoing research projects right now and are happy to open calls for round 3 of applications. Previous experience is appreciated, but it is not required. You can apply now via the link in the chat box. Please note that only applications from GNA members will be considered. Now, I would love to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Matthew Anthony. Dr. Anthony has a profound interest in the field of research. He has published over 10 research articles till date and been involved in multiple global research projects. He is also a peer reviewer for multiple research journals. You can feel free to drop any questions in the chat box and Dr. Anthony will answer them after his presentation. Also, do fill out the feedback form that will be shared at the end of the session so that you can receive your certificate of attendance. Now, I welcome our speaker, Dr. Anthony.
Thank you, Anjali, so much for the introduction. Is the audio still clear?
It is. Yeah, it is.
Fine, perfect. So good evening, guys. Hope everyone is doing well. I'll be talking about types of research projects. However, I'm not going to take a lecture class because I think everyone has had enough of that in their community medicine postings and, lecture classes. So I'll basically be I'll give you a brief introduction on what the type of research project is. And I will mainly focus on how you can get started and how you can publish more as a medical student. Throughout the session, if you have any questions, you can type it in the chat box. At the end of the session, I'll go through those questions and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Now, before I get started, I want everyone to know that don't have the stigma that, research can only be done by these first class or distinction holders. And I've heard that a lot. Students will be like, no, I don't want to do research because I think it's a lot of work and I don't think I'll be able to handle it. It's not exactly like that. And if you want to get it done, you can get it done very easily, actually. So I'll be talking about how this session is going to benefit you. I'll give you a very brief into why you should do research. I'll talk about the most common types of research projects that are easy to undertake for medical students, especially UGs and PGs, how you can finish a particular research project faster, how you can publish more during your time in medical school, and how you can find research topics. And then I'll just give you a couple tips and secrets of research writing and publishing. Now, why you should do research? So majority of the students fall into 3 categories. That is students planning to go to the US, students planning to go to the UK, and students planning to pursue NEET. There will be other students as well planning to pursue Australia, Germany, Canada, but all of them have the same reason as to why you should do research. Now for US especially, so when you fill your ERAS application for residency, there's a particular section in your ERAS application where you can fill your research details. That includes your research publications, that includes the amount of conferences you have gone to, poster presentations, abstract presentations, etc. Now, in last year's survey, the program directors rated research as a 3.7 out of 5 as a factor that would favor applicants for residency selection. Now, I have to reiterate that research is not a make or break in your application. If you don't have research and you still pursue USA, it doesn't mean that you will not get selected, but it is definitely something that will help you in your application and will help you stand out against other applicants. But one thing that you need to notice, if you are applying to certain specialties such as neurosurgery, dermatology, orthopedics, they heavily rely on research. So if you look at the statistics, uh, an average number of publications that a neurosurgery resident had, a neurosurgery applicant had last year was 55 to 60 publications. Same goes for dermat and ortho as well. The amount of conferences they have attended would be in the high 50s, high 60s. And these are for the highly competitive specialties, but specialties like internal medicine, family medicine, pathology, they don't really heavily depend on research, but it is something that can help you stand out. Now, when you're trying to gain clinical experience, having research in your portfolio will help you get a research elective. When you're applying for research electives, you need to apply with your CV. So having research publications already present will give the idea to the preceptor or the professor at US that you already know about research. So you stand a higher chance of getting accepted for a research elective. Now for UK, you apply with your CV. So it helps you again for your non-training jobs, and it will help you get a job faster because you have research. If you're part of these organizations, it shows that you're actively involved throughout your medical school, apart from just sitting and studying. And it will also help with co-training. So in co-training, it's a point-based system as to how they choose you. And in that point-based system, research has specific points. So it starts with 6 points all the way down to 1 point. 6 points will be if you have an original article and you're the head author, you will get 6 points for that. So research will heavily help you for your co-training jobs. Now for applicants who are planning to pursue their future studies in India itself, doing research in a UG time makes your thesis work a lot more easier. And something I've seen quite a lot with PG struggling, at least in my university. Thesis is a headache for all PGs. And I think if you have prior research experience, it makes that so much more easier. Plus, a lot of these universities, they expect PGs to present at conferences and achieve a certain number of publications by the end of 3 years. And if you have research experience in the time as a UG, it makes your job so much more easier. Now, added over there as a UG, you can make money. Yeah, so certain universities, doesn't apply to all. Certain universities will pay you for publishing. So our university, if we get a publication, they mark your publication as to a certain number of points, and you will get paid for that publication. So even if you publish a case report at a Q4 journal, you will get paid 7,000 rupees for doing that. So in addition to getting a publication, also getting money from the university for doing so. Now, types of research projects, the very first one I'll talk about is case reports, because it is the easiest type of research that you can take up as a UG and is the fastest that you can get done. It's basically an article that highlights a patient's interesting finding or a rare disease or a rare presentation of a common disease, etc. As I said before, it's the easiest type of research project to take up as a UG or a PG. Your first draft will take you a maximum of 1 to 2 weeks to get done with. And I'm talking about if this is the very first time you're doing a case report, it will take you a maximum of 1 to 2 weeks to get done with it. And in addition to writing this, if your article per se is taking time to get published, you can present the same case report at conferences. You can present them as a poster publication. You can present them as an abstract. You can even go for oral presentation. So it's basically a win-win situation. And if you have a friend or two to help you with the case report and you guys collaborate with each other, it can be easily done in a maximum of 2 days. Now I'll talk about some difficulties of undertaking a case report. Now, finding a case report is very difficult. And I say this because not every UG or medical student has access to this facility. That is, the easiest way to get case report is through your professors. Whatever department you are interested in, you should approach a professor at that department and approach a professor that already is heavily involved in research. Don't approach a professor that does not, do a lot of research, even though he might be friendly. If he's not heavily involved in research and he gives you a research topic, it might be difficult for you to publish because he might not be as interested in it as you are. So approach someone who is already heavily involved in research in your university, and approach someone, and this is very important, approach someone who has time for you. If you approach the head of department of a certain specialty and you ask the professor to work with you, it's going to be a fact that they won't have as much as time to spend with you as you would need. And it would make your work a lot more difficult. And this was a mistake I made. I have directly approached head of departments and asked them if it would be possible for me to work on a research project with them. And even though they agreed, and I'm thankful that they did, the thing is, because it was my initial projects, it took me a lot of time to figure out stuff because they would always be busy to solve my doubts. Now, another one drawback, or we wouldn't say drawback, a difficulty is you require a patient consent. Now, I would say 95% of journals require you to have a patient consent when you start your publication process. It is a document that you have to upload for the publication process. And if you ever find any journal that does not require you to have a patient consent, then you probably should not be publishing in that journal. That is highly suspicious. It's one of the main ethics. A patient consent is needed. And the thing is, a lot of us, especially those working in government hospitals, it's very difficult for you to get patient consent. So it's something that you should keep in mind, especially when you're taking up case reports. If you're planning on publishing in student-friendly journals like BMJ case reports, it's very important for them to have a patient consent. Otherwise, they will not even consider it. You'll just get desk rejected. I'll talk about what desk rejection is later. But yeah, you'll need a patient consent. Another one thing is you need an ethical clearance. And ethical clearance is also a must requirement at most journals. Almost, I think 99% of journals will ask you to have an ethical clearance. Now, the issue with this is not every university has an ethical committee. And if you don't have an ethical committee at a university, it would be difficult for you to publish this case report. Though some journals are lenient and they don't require you to send the certificate, they still require you to have it stated that you have the ethical clearance approval from your college. So that is another one a difficulty of approaching a case report. Now, case reports are difficult to get published at top level journals. Okay, if you're looking at Q1 journals, it's very difficult to publish case reports there. You'll only be able to publish there if you have an incredibly rare disease that's very interesting, or if your guide is someone really well known in the research field, then it makes it easy for you to publish at top level journals. Otherwise, case reports is pretty difficult to get Q1 journals. And I will explain what Q1 means, the Q value of a journal later, but just keep in mind, it will be difficult to get published at top level journals. And, but it really doesn't matter as a medical student. For us, what matters is getting publications that are indexed. And that's all that matters. You don't need to look at whether it's a top level journal, if it is a Q4 or Q1, it really doesn't matter if you're pursuing US or UK, as long as you have a publication that is indexed in PubMed. I'll come to that as well later. It doesn't matter. So I was just stating that it would be difficult to get it at a top level journal. Now, plagiarism, I put a question mark because usually your first time writing a draft of a case report, you will have a high plagiarism level, but that's something that can be changed. It will just take a day or two's work to rewrite the English, make active into passive sentence or passive into active, and you'll be able to solve the plagiarism issue fast. Now, what are some tips that I would give about case reports? As I said, your professors are your best friends. You need to find a professor who has time for you. Find a professor who is already well actively involved in research. And you will be able to find this by just searching the name on Google and just put a space research. You'll be able to find the number of research publications they have, and find someone that is always involved. Um, Also, for example, if you're pursuing US and UK and you're interested for, say, let's say, for example, internal medicine, it is preferable that you have publications in internal medicine or something internal medicine alike, for example, ethics or medical ethics, etc. Yes, you can work with other departments. It's not going to affect your CV. It's not going to show that you're not interested in internal medicine. It's still a plus point, but it's always preferable for them to see, oh, you like internal medicine and you've done internal medicine case reports. So it's a good thing. Now, when you're starting off writing your case report, okay, go to websites such as PubMed and Scopus. Scopus by Elsevier, make an account and search that topic and find a case report that is similar to the article that you have. And once you do this, use that reference article as your base. And what I mean by this is, when you're starting to write your abstract, when you're planning to write your introduction and your discussion, use the reference article and select about 3-4 reference articles. Use them as a base to write your introduction and your abstract. It will make your job a lot more easier, because you'll get an idea of the flow that those articles have written. For example, you will look at an article. They have started off by giving a definition. They would move into statistics. Then the next para, they'll talk about physiology. And in the third para, they'll be talking about your case. So reading those reference articles will give you an idea of structuring your article. And you can use that as a base to work on your case report. As I said, follow the structure of the reference article. Every case report has the same structure. It is a global structure. Every journal also, 90% of the journals have the exact same structure. Couple journals will have you to add certain extra things like highlights and certain other information. But most journals have the same structure. It is abstract, introduction, the case history, and discussion. And you can use your reference article to gather details, especially for writing your introduction and discussion. Don't copy paste the details, because then your plagiarism will increase. You need a plagiarism of less than 10% for all research types. So don't copy paste it, just use it as a base, and you can then work on it. So yeah, as I said, the research articles and most time, the reference articles and most time will help you write your article faster. Your first time, it will be the very first time that you work on a case report, it will take some time, but the more you do case reports, you'll get a hand of it, and it'll be much easier for you to write reports. You'll be able to write case reports in the maximum of 3 days. The first time it will probably take you a lot longer, like a week or two, but yeah. Plagiarism, as I said, you don't have to worry about it. If it is the initial days of working on research, don't worry about it. I've had case reports of plagiarism with 55-60%. It happens. It doesn't matter. You can always go back and change it, and in your second draft, improve the plagiarism. Now, there's a formula for case report. As I said, the structure is abstract, introduction, case history, and discussion. I would recommend you write the abstract at the end. You start with introduction, and the formula that I follow is, I follow the 3-para formula. So the first para, you give an introduction about what your topic is. For example, if it's a case report about diabetes, give an introduction about diabetes and give the statistics of diabetes. For example, the worldwide statistics, and then statistics of India and statistics of your particular state. So if you're from Karnataka or Kerala, what is that statistics of that particular disease in your state? In the second para, you can focus on physiology, you can focus on mechanism, and you can just blabber about that, give them an idea in the second para of what your disease is. And your third para is when you have to highlight your case. You need to highlight the importance of your case. Start off your third para by giving a very small, brief introduction as to what your case is, and then highlight it. It's somewhere you can show off your case. As I say, like as I tell my friends, if you have a case that you searched online and the total number of that particular case type reported in India is less than 10, you can highlight that in your introduction. You can say, this type of case report has only been reported less than 10 times in India. So this particular case will help improve literature and help improve research in this particular topic. Because when an editor or a reviewer reads this, they get an idea that, okay, this research is rare and it has a very good value for publication. Now, case history, it's literally copy paste your case taking skills. Whatever case that you have in the case sheet, copy paste that. Just structure it structure it with good English, and include your investigations and your treatment followed. And there is no particular format you have to follow. If you want, you can add the investigations in your case history as wordings. If you want, you can create a table and add all the investigations like that. There's no particular format. It depends on how you want to do it and depends on the journal guidelines. Discussion is the last part of your case. You can follow usually the 4-para rule. In the first para, you just talk about your definition, just like the introduction, but expand it. Same thing, write about statistics, but expand the statistics this time. Second para, you can expand on the physiology and mechanism. You can talk about theories that other research articles have cited, and you can reference them in your article. Your third, fourth, and fifth para, you can compare your findings with similar findings in other research articles or other case reports. For example, if so a case report that I had done about pneumothorax is usually associated with ventilation, but our case report, the patient developed it without ventilation. So I use that as an opportunity to compare my this finding along with other findings. So I would say, like, in our case, we found out that the patient developed this even though he was not on ventilation. But in this case report that was published in USA, they found out that 60% of the patients will develop it only following ventilation. That's an example. And you can also compare age. For example, if a particular disease falls in an age group, let's say epithelial carcinoma of the parotid, let's say it falls into the age group of 60 to 70 years, and you got a case report where a 30-year-old is getting affected, you can write that as well. You could say, in our case, it was a 30-year-old that was affected. However, in this case that was published in US, or this case that was published in UK, or in this similar case published in India, the patient that was there was in the age group of 60 to 70s, and that is the common age group that this disease affects. Now, I've just given you a very brief formula for case report. I do know that the association is holding a talk on case report. I would recommend you to go for that talk, because it is the easiest type of research article that you can work on, that you can immediately get started and you can immediately publish. So go for that talk. You'll get a better idea of how to write it, because I've just run through the type of case report and how you can do it. I've just given a basic formula, but yeah, it's an easy type of is an easy type of article you can work on and is easy to get published. I move on to the next one, is original articles. Now I'll talk mainly about cross-sectional, record-based, cohort studies somewhat, and database studies. Now, these are articles that are very descriptive, and it's about a particular topic or a hypothesis supported by data that is analyzed using statistical methods. This is the most valued type of research project for the university that you're studying at, as well as for going abroad. I have heard at times during your US residency interview, even though a student has, let's say, 3 case reports, the interviewer has asked, you have 3 case reports, which is very commendable, but why haven't you worked on an original article? And it's always is always considered as the most valued publication. As I said, yeah, if you have an original article that is published in a Q1 or a Q2 journal, then it's like you have set your CV for your future applications to US or UK. Now, original articles can be presented at conferences, and original articles stand a much higher chance at winning prizes as well at these conferences. And again, original articles have a higher chance of being accepted for oral presentations as well. And but again, this varies, but 80% of the time you see original articles winning prizes at conferences, even though case reports do win. Original articles stand, as I said, because of the higher value, they tend to win win at these conferences. Another plus point is you can do original articles along with ICMR. So if your college has a facility, or if they do help you with your ICMR application, I would say you go for it. But go for it early during your time in medical school. Don't go for it during your fourth year or third year. It's not going to be possible for you to do it because of the uh, everything else you have to do at university is going to be very difficult. So if you have a chance of applying for ICMR, do it early. Do it during your second year or first year when you have time, and come up with an original article. You can get done with the ICMR project, which means you'll get an ICMR certificate. You will get the ICMR cash prize, how much ever they are allotting. I think I don't remember. I think this year it was 20,000, but yeah. And you will also, following that, you can also submit your article to ICMR's journal and it will get accepted. Now, what are the difficulties of an original article? Excuse me a moment. Yeah. So what are the difficulties of an original article? It requires a lot of time and it requires a lot of effort, which is why I'm saying you need to start early, especially if you're doing an original article. You have to start at least by your second year or your third year, because you have time during your second and third year where you will be able to work on these articles. Starting them in your fourth year or starting them in your first year, there are students in my batch who have started them in first year and still have not completed the project because they weren't able to. Fourth year is not, I don't think I've heard anyone starting an original article in fourth year. It'll be very difficult for you to finish it because immediately after that, you'll be going to internship and you won't get time during your internship to work on an original article. Uh, you, I would recommend you getting done with an original article using the help of your friends. Build a team of 3 or 4 people and then start with an original article. Uh, because you will be able to split the work and you will be able to get done with work faster. If you're alone and you're doing an original article, you're going to go through a lot more effort than people working in a team. And it's something I've seen as well. A lot of the times what happens is if you're working alone in an original article, you're going to get burned out and you'll get tired of that research project and you'll abandon the research project. So if you have a team, you'll be able to split work and you'll be able to do a certain this, they'll be able to do that, and it'll make your work a lot more easier. Now, again, coming to IEC clearance, original articles, it's a lot more difficult to acquire an IEC clearance. I am not sure about how other universities work. Usually, we have to apply with the original article to the scientific committee in our university, where that's the first meeting. You have to attend the meeting. They will highlight all the changes that they want you to make. And 99% of the time, there will always be changes that they want you to make. They will never be happy with your protocol. It's always like that. No matter how perfect it is, they will always tell you to make some changes. Once you're done with your scientific meeting, they'll usually push this toward the ethics meeting. And in our university is a meeting where you sit in a round table with 15, 20 people, and it is very intimidating because believe it or not, all 15, 20 people will be speaking at the same time, asking you questions about your research protocol and your research project. When I went for this meeting, I was in second year and I couldn't speak because there was 15, 20 people trying to ask me questions and I wasn't able to answer any of them. So it's not like they will reject your IEC clearance. It's a lot more difficult for you to get the IEC clearance. And majority of the journals are very particular that you have that IEC certificate number in the manuscript. Like you're supposed to state that number in brackets in your manuscript at the time of publication. If it is not there and you send it for publication, they're just going to send me your article back. You'll get an email that states it'll be there. In changes, it'll be mentioned, please state your IEC certificate number. So especially for original articles, they will ask you for your certificate number, and you'll also need keep the scan PDF of the certificate. Some journals will require you to send the certificate as well, so they can make sure that you're not falsifying the certificate number, etc. Now, um, it requires data from participants in big numbers. It depends on the project that you undertake. And this comes to the type of project that you undertake. I have to state that if you are taking an original article, go for an article topic that you enjoy. Most times what happens is you'll approach a professor to do research. They will agree. Most times, because you're just starting out, you won't have a good article topic in your mind. And what ends up happening is the professor will give you a topic, and it might not be a topic that you enjoy, but you will still take it because the professor has given you a topic. And what ends up happening is you won't enjoy the process because it's not a topic you're interested in, and you'll eventually get burned out, no matter even if you're working in a team, because it's a very long process. You're going to get burned out. You'll end up abandoning the project. So take a topic that you enjoy working in and start early. Yeah, as I said, start during your first year, start during your second year, when you have time, so you can actually sit with a research project. As I said, yeah, burnouts, I've already mentioned that. And yeah, original articles require you to make a protocol before you actually start writing your manuscript. And it is this very protocol that you have to submit for your ethics clearance, and that you have to go over with your guide, so you have an idea of how your research project is supposed to go. I'm not going to be talking about how you should write the protocol and how you should write the original article, because it wouldn't be possible for me to cover it in this session. If there is a session that again talks about how you should write an original article and how you should write a protocol, go for it, because it's not something that can be covered in the span of 1 or 2 hours. So yeah. Now, as I said, usually original articles are the very first step that you take to research at your university. So it makes it a lot more difficult. Start early. And I'll give you my example. So the very first research project that I started with was in second year, 2 months after I joined my second year of medical school. And as I said, when I went to my professor, it was the head of the department as well. So this made it a bit more difficult because he wouldn't have time sometimes. I wouldn't blame him because he is the head of a department, so he wouldn't have time to always meet us. It would be very difficult for me to coordinate with sir to meet him and discuss. And when I initially went to met him, sir itself gave me topics. He gave me a list of topics. He said, you can do these topics, work on it. But I was not interested in any of those topics, to be honest. So I came up with my own topic. I came up with the topic of mouth ulcers. And it is something I was very interested in because it's something that I suffer with. I think it's something that a lot of people around you suffer with as well, which has no explanation as to how it works or what treatment works for it and why you get it. A lot of people get it because of stress. A lot of people get it because they eat a particular type of fruit, etc. So I was very interested in taking this research project because I had it constantly in the back of my head as to why I wanted to find out why ulcers occur in an individual. So as I said before, I started this research project in the month of September in my second year. The project was completed last year in my fourth year. So as I told you, it takes a lot of time. Our data collection number was 680 patients or participants, which was a big number as well. It took us almost 3 years to complete the research project. And this includes the times of, we won't be able to do it every single day because, we have our sessional exams, we have our university exams. And by the time you get done with that, the next exams happen. So it wasn't possible for us to always keep working on this article. And with the number of 680 participants, trying to analyze the data of 680 participants itself took a good 6-7 months to analyze and then write the draft. Yeah, that article was done last year, and it was published 2 weeks back. So that's what I'm trying to say. Another issue with original articles is when you send it for publication, journals take a lot of time to send you your review and to send back the email of whether it is accepted or rejected. Because it's an original article, because reviewers have to go through your manuscript, they have to go through your data, then, they have to see whether this data is reliable. Are you faking this data? It takes a lot of time. It will take a minimum of 6 months in some journals, going up to almost 1 year, 1.5 years in some journals for you to get a reply back. So that is why I'm saying you have to start early, because if you start in your third year, by the time you leave your medical school is when you'll probably get a reply from a journal. So start early so you can finish the manuscript fast, and so you can send it to a journal and get done with the review process, work with the review, and have it published while you're still in medical school. Find a professor who's ready to work with you, literally be annoyed by you, and who's ready to support you through the whole process. Because it is your very first research article, you will be having a lot of questions as to how to do the article, how to write the protocol, how to write a project, how to analyze the data. So you need to find someone who will constantly be there to support you through this process. Some professor who will not be annoyed by the number of times you message him on WhatsApp, someone who is always ready to reply to your messages, which was a plus point for me, because even though my professor was the head of the department at that time, he was always ready to help me through the entire process, which made my a lot more easier, because he would always guide me, tell me what to do next, how to go about it, etc. Find a good team. It's always recommended you work in a team of 3 to 4 people, because you can split the work. If I was to do the ulcer article working alone, trying to get 680 participants data, I would still not be done with that article. It wouldn't be possible for me to get done with such an article. That is why I'm saying it's better you find friends, close friends of yours, friends who are interested in doing research, or friends who are pursuing the same PG life as you. For example, if you have friends going for UK and you're also going to UK, US, and you're going to UK, work with them so you'll be able to publish more, because you will have that constantly in the back of your head that you need to get publications done. Choose a doable topic. I've already come to this. And choose an achievable data collection number. I say doable topic, sometimes professors will give you a topic which will sound extremely, it'll sound extremely great, but it will not be doable. For example, one of the topics that I was recommended to do was do a record-based collection of IBD for 1,000 patients. That is not possible. Like, no matter if you're working in a team of 3 or 4, trying to get the data of 1,000 patients and analyzing 1,000 patients' data is not going to happen. So choose something that's doable. Choose something, think about it, see if you can do it according to your timeline, and then only accept it. Don't blindly accept it because the professor has given you a topic, you've got a topic and like, okay, you know what, I'll do it. You'll end up abandoning it because it'll be too much for you. Now, yeah, if you're doing a data collection type of study, like I did for the research, my mouth ulcer article, try to do data collection using Google Forms instead of physical paper. The reason I say this is because if you do it through Google Forms, you'll already be able to get that data onto an Excel sheet, which will save you a ton of time. Literally, I'm talking about it might even save you a month or two's worth of time. Because if you get data in a physical paper, what this means is that once you finish collecting your data, you have to sit down with your computer and enter each of those data into your Excel sheet, rather than just having Google already do that for you. So it makes work a lot more easier. And my next point is a very important point. Let me do this 1 minute. Yeah, I'm going to circle this because it's a very, very important point that I need to bring up, which I've seen very common. Please do only one original article at a time. And especially if it's your first time, kindly do only one original article at a time. I've seen students or my batchmates even try to take up 2-3 original articles, and it's the very first time that you're doing an original article. You're not going to be done with even one. Like the same batchmates are still going on with those 3 original articles still now. Like they're an internship and it still hasn't gotten done with. So do only one original article at a time, especially if you're starting out with research. If you already have experience, you know how to go about it, then it doesn't matter. You can take up 2-3, you have a good team, you guys work very efficiently, you can take up as much as research articles as you want. You'll be able to get done with it. And a tip that I would give is learn the preferred statistics software through YouTube. The reason I say this is because one is not every university has access to a statistician. And sometimes professors will have their own personal statisticians, etc. But it's always better for you to do your own statistics because you'll know what you want. For example, in the article that I did, I wanted to find out the association of mouth ulcers with blood grouping, or the mouth ulcers with sleep, the amount of stress, etc. So I was able to sit with my own laptop and continuously interchange factors and see if there is any significant association with 2 factors. Because with a statistician, what happens is when you book a slot to meet them, you just have to list out everything you need, give it to them. They will do the statistics for you and send it back to you. It will be annoying to keep going back to them for more factors or more statistics you want, which is why I'm telling, if you learn the statistics method on YouTube, you'll be able to sit with your laptop at any moment and find out whether there's a factor that is associated, or you want to change a certain table, you want to change the coding. Everything can be done in your own time. And honestly, it doesn't take much time. Like the statistics method that we use in our college is SPSS. Studying SPSS on YouTube took me, I think, an hour. I would just play the video on YouTube and follow literally minute by minute on how he was doing it and just do the same in the software. So the more you watch the videos, you will get a hold of it and you'll be able to do the data statistics on your own. And I would recommend you do that. Obviously, you can get a professional help, but I'm just saying from a student point of view, for you to save time and for you to handle things on your own, it makes it a lot more easier. Now, no matter how much I talk about, the tips and, no matter how many tips or help I provide, you will not learn how to do an original article unless you get started with one yourself. And the reason I say this is because original articles are purely trial and error. When you start with an original article, the mistakes you make, you learn from them, and that will help you with the next article that you work on. So don't keep going to these talks, going to this original article talk and, he's talking about how to do it, how to do an original article. The next talk you attend, you don't be in the mindset of, I'm going to learn, I'm going to perfect the lecture part of how to do an original article and only then start with an original article. When I started with an original article, I was completely zero with my research knowledge. I had absolutely no idea how to write a protocol. I didn't know how to write a manuscript. I didn't even know how the process of research is. I never attended any talks in my first year because I was constantly, I need to pass first year, that thing. I never attended any talks. So I blindly went into doing an original article, and that helped me a lot because even though it was difficult for me to get done with the article, the trial and error, the constant mistakes that I made, the constant learning with the help of the professor, it helped me with my future articles. Because you're constantly making mistakes and you learn from those mistakes. And yeah, another point that I need to stress on is do not be disappointed if you have negative results in your study. And the reason I say this is because you can twist your words. For example, let's say you're doing an article on mouth ulcers, and your hypothesis was the frequency of mouth ulcers occurring in an individual is higher in individuals who have less sleep. But when you did the research project, you found out that the association was statistically not significant. So don't be disappointed, because you can twist your words and you can say now, well, you found out that frequency of mouth ulcers does not really matter on the amount of sleep that you get. And you're technically providing to the field of research when it comes to mouth ulcers, because especially topics like this that does not have anything definitive, you'll be able to twist your words. And, instead of saying, oh, the hypothesis was not true, you could be like, technically the hypothesis was true, but it was not statistically significant. And you'll be able to, when you do your manuscript writing, you'll be able to twist your words and say it. It's just an example that I gave. Now, how to write an original article briefly, I will come to that 1 minute. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly go through this, because it's not possible for me to give you a full class as to how to write an original article. That would take a long time. And as I said, if you are waiting to perfect the lecture part of how to write and how to go forth with it, I would say don't wait, just blindly go into the project. But the important thing is, find yourself a professor who is ready to be with you. That is very important. You need someone to always guide you through the process. You need someone to support you. So find a prof who is ready to always be by your side. Now, original articles, the very first thing that you need to do is you need to write a protocol. Your protocol will contain an abstract, it will contain an introduction, it will contain a review of literature, it will contain the method and methodology of how you're going to collect the forms, and what statistics method you're going to use, and how you're going to analyze. And then it will contain the discussion and references. This protocol is then sent to IEC, that is the ethics clearance. Once you get the clearance, you can start working on your research project. Now, once your data and everything is done and you are ready to start writing your research article follows, this is the format in majority of the journals. Okay, it's abstract with keywords, introduction, materials and methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. Certain journals will ask you to have your abstract further split into background, methods, and conclusion. So when you write abstract, below that, you have to make 3 more paras with subheadings of background, which is basically like a background into your topic. After that, they will ask you for the methods and results. So you'll have to give a very brief a para on how you did the research and how you got the results. And then the last subheading will be conclusion. But this is certain journals. So I think BMJ requires this type of format. They require you to write abstract in subheadings. But this is something for you to worry about later on. This is something for you to worry about during your publishing time, like during the time you're ready to get published. But when you're starting to write the original article, follow this format. You'll be more than enough, because this format will make it easy for you to modify your article later on. Abstract, make sure you stick it to less than 350 words. A lot of journals have started having abstract word limit in the website that you upload your stuff into. So if it is more than the particular word limit, you won't be able to proceed into the next section of the publication process. Introduction, you can follow the same format that I mentioned before, the 3-para format, more than enough. Materials and methods, you have to write the entire thing in 1 paragraph. It's basically talking about how you sent your protocol to the committee clearance, and the committee cleared it. After that, you went to the respective hospital or the respective college, you got their approval and to do the project in their institution. After that, you will talk about how you approached participants. Was it through Google Forms? you gave them a consent form, you have acquired their consent, they were informed about the type of research project, and all of that stuff you have to just write in one para. After that, you will write about the analysis that you did, the type of analysis that you undertook, the type of software that you've undertaken, the values that you've considered as significant, which is mostly constant throughout all the journals. And after your materials and methods section, it'll be your results. Results is, at most times, you should always have the results in tables, and you can have the explanation of each table below it. So the reason I'm telling you to do this is because one is it helps give an explanation of the table above. So when you have a table, for example, table 1, you have your data. Below the table, just write the similar data, but in your words. And this, as a reviewer, when I'm going through an article, reading the paragraph below will help me so much more than me trying to look at the data on the table and trying to figure out what is happening. Some journals will tell you not to do that. Again, as I said, this is something for you to worry about during your publication time. But when you're writing a manuscript, don't think about that. Couple of journals are very strict about the word limit of an article. So in these journals, they will tell you your results should just be tables, and you should not explain what is in those tables in the paragraph. You should explain something else which is not represented as a statistics method in the results section. So you can worry about that later, because if you already have a manuscript where you have the table and you have an explanation below it, you have a base which you can modify as per the journal requirements later on. And most times they will accept it the way it is. Discussion, again, similar to the format that I mentioned before, but make sure it's very, very descriptive. Make sure you include a lot of hypotheses from other published articles of your similar topic, and compare your finding with those published findings. Keep bringing up these hypotheses. For example, a very interesting one that I found out was in the mouth ulcer article that I did, I tried to find out the association between how the occurrence, how frequent the occurrence of mouth ulcers is with that of the number of times you smoke. And obviously in our article, it was the association was the more number of times you smoke, the higher your frequency of occurrence of mouth ulcers is. But as I was writing my discussion, I found 2 articles where they took data and they found out that smoking actually prevented mouth ulcers in their patients. So I wrote a good 500, 600 paragraph, 500, 600 word paragraph on this one comparison. You know, I said in this article that was published, I think it was in Singapore and in Ireland or Germany, I don't remember. They found out that smoking actually prevented mouth ulcers in these patients because smoking increased the keratinization layer and therefore gave more protection to the individuals from from developing mouth ulcers. And I was like, but in my article, what I found out was smoking actually caused more mouth ulcers to occur in a particular individual. And funny thing is, because I mentioned this, you know, when I sent it for the journal publication and went for review, I got back a comment from a reviewer stating, you know, that I've talked too much about smoking helping to prevent mouth ulcers and I should not do that. And he wanted me to rewrite the entire paragraph. But at the same time, another reviewer on the exact same thing said it was very interesting and that he found it very fascinating as to how we found out, you know, like we referenced an article that, you know, smoking actually helped prevent mouth ulcers rather than cause it. So yeah, it's always compare your studies, compare your findings with other findings. And every single finding, no matter if it is a positive or negative finding, compare them with the findings of other studies. For example, even though you have a positive finding, you can still compare that with the same positive finding of another study, because the way that they have done their study, the data collection or the data number in their study will always be different. So always compare. Positive with positives, you can compare positive and negative, you can compare negative with negative, you can compare negative with positive. Keep comparing throughout your entire discussion, make it a comparison type of writing. And these formulas that I'm actually giving you, these ways of writing I'm giving you, is the same formulas that were actually recommended, and it is an article that is published in NEJM. That is one of the top journals. It was an article that is published as to how to write a research project. And this was what they had recommended in those articles. It's the same thing I'm telling you here. I've read those articles, and that's how I developed this way of writing. Conclusion is basically summary. You just have to summarize your findings. Nothing much in conclusion, nothing too important you have to mention over here. Again, so one thing I want to highlight is, if you're doing a research article, let's say if you're from the state of Delhi and you're doing a research article on diabetes and its association with smoking. I'm just giving an example. And it is the only type, is like the only type of research project done in Delhi, or if it is only if you've found like 5 of them done in Delhi, mention that in your abstract and your introduction. Mention it that this research project that you're doing, for example, you can word it like this particular, put it in, this particular title that I'm doing, or this particular topic that I'm doing. As per our literature search, we have already found 4 articles published in Delhi, and all throughout India, there's only 10 articles published. Thereby, this will help improve the research understanding of this topic. Because when an editor reads your abstract and introduction, they'll get an idea of, okay, this is actually a rare study, and it's a study, then it is worth getting published. So yeah, keep that in mind. If it is rare, mention that it is rare. Don't keep it in your head that it is rare, and don't mention that. Don't prevent it from not being mentioned in the article. So always mention it in the article. If it is rare, mention that it is rare. Just don't be cocky about it. Basically, so mention it in a way that as an editor, when he reads it, he understands that it is. He understands that you're trying to say that it is rare and it's a good study to publish in this journal. So I'll move on to the next one. And yeah, article reviews. So give me a minute, 1 minute. Yeah, article reviews is, as the name suggests, it's an article that reviews a certain topic, or in layman terms, as I tell my friends, is basically summarizing a storybook, okay, or a story. This is a type of research project that is not known to a lot of UG students, and it is, I would say, at times the simplest type of research project to do, much easier than getting a case report done, and I will tell you why later. Okay, your first article review will take you a maximum of 3-4 days to write, for you to get the hold of the structure, for you to understand how to write it. Maximum 3-4 days. By the time you get a hold of it, you'll be able to publish. You'll be able to write at least 2-3 in a month. Back in 3rd year, I was able to, when I took up my first article review, it took me a week to get that done. And after my 3rd or 4th article review, I was able to write article reviews in 2-3 days, which meant in a month, I would have at least 3 or 4 article reviews ready to get published. Doesn't mean that they will get published, but at least it is ready to get published, which means you can send it to a journal later on whenever required. Article reviews can be done solo. You don't require a team. You can sit at home with your laptop and get it done. You don't need the help of anyone. Yes, of course, if you want to get a friend involved, you can get them involved as well. It's not really necessary. It's something that can be done solo. And an article review is something you can write on any topic in this world. You can write about medical ethics. You can write about a particular rare disease. You can write about new investigations, they're found out in a rare disease, etc. And what I would suggest for you to find a topic for article reviews, look through these medical news. These medical apps that give you updates on medical field news. Go through those news, because you can write a topic on that topic. I'll give you an example. So when lockdown happened, when the COVID lockdown happened, there was this big surge of news. The doctors are getting. There were violent attacks against doctors and healthcare personnel. It is all over the news. So what I did was I took this as an opportunity to write an article review summarizing the violent attacks against healthcare personnel in our country in the past 2 years, and summarizing also what the government did prior and what they're planning to do in the future. They introduced that new law. So I wrote an article review about that. And because it was a topic in the news at that time, the moment I sent it for journal, it got published within a week. I received an acceptance letter within a week back. I didn't even have to do any major changes to the article when I got the review reports. So find opportunities like this. Another example that I would give is euthanasia. So it's another article that I published. So euthanasia is it's a topic that is different all throughout the world. Every country has their specific law about euthanasia. And what I did was I just wrote an article review about the laws of euthanasia around the whole world. So in America, this is the laws they follow in so many states. In Canada, this is what they follow in Netherlands, in Belgium, and Germany, in South America. And then I wrote about India, the major case of euthanasia in India, and what the government and their stand on it was. And it is an article that I wrote, and it got published as well. So you can find topics such as these, find topics that are in the news, and you can write an article review about that, and it's very likely that it will get published. Now, a good thing about article reviews, it does not require any patient consent. It does not require any IEC clearance. You can sit at home with your laptop or tablet. You can do it at home itself. You just spare a couple of minutes a day, you'll be able to write an article review. Now, it is not considered as a high level publication or a highly valued publication that goes to original articles. I would say article reviews fall into the third or fourth place. Okay, but if you're planning to pursue residency or you're planning to go to UK, I mentioned it before, it does not matter it does not matter what type of research you're getting published. As long as you have publications that are indexed in good journals, it's still a plus point for you. It is still considered as a publication. They're not going to scrutinize you saying, oh, you're published like 3-4 article reviews only. Why haven't you done other type of stuff? It doesn't happen majority of the times. There are cases where I've heard that happens, but it's very rarely that happens. Now, the difficulties is article reviews can't be published at conferences, and certain conferences allow you to publish present article reviews, but that is very rare, and most times you don't get accepted as well. And a big issue for article reviews is the amount of journals that you can apply to is limited, yet it is still vast, if that makes any sense. What I'm trying to say is not a lot of journals accept article reviews. You will see them saying, yes, we accept article reviews, you can send it to us, we will consider it for publication. But what happens majority of the times is the top level journals will only accept article reviews from individuals that they have sent an invite for writing. But you still have a good number of journals to publish it to. There's no like a scarcity of journals. There's still a good number of journals you can write to and you can publish it to. So it shouldn't be a worry, but top level journals, you want to publish it to Q1, Q2 journals. If you're writing an article review, it will be difficult to get a publication there, because most times those journals will only accept publications from authors that they've invited to write for that journal. And yeah, as I said, it's a bit more difficult to get published, but you still have a good selection of journals to go forth with it. Now, so this is my tips for article reviews. As I said, go for a topic that is in hot news in medical field. If you're going through the news and you find, for example, tomorrow, India decided to change its stance on abortion and abortion laws. immediately sit and write an article about abortion and abortion laws, you will definitely get it published. And you can even get such articles published in medical journals. Just because you're writing about abortion and abortion laws doesn't mean that you'll only get published in like what forensic journals or ethics journals. You can get these articles published in medical journals as well. So whenever you find such topics, when you find an opportunity, write an article and send it to a journal. Even though it might not get accepted, you will eventually get an acceptance in a journal. The more you keep sending, you'll eventually get accepted. It might be a Q4 journal, but still it will at least get accepted as a publication. Now, the easiest way to do an article review is go through PubMed or go through Scopus. For example, if you're writing about, let's say, patient consent, you're writing about the ethics of patient consent. Go to these websites, type article review about ethics of patient consent. You'll get a list. Take 5 articles from that list and combine all their findings into your article along with your findings. So what I did for the euthanasia study that I had got was I took about 6 articles, each article talking about a specific continent. And I combined all those articles into my article. So what this means is a professor, an author, or people like ourselves, instead of going and opening 6 articles, you could just open my article and you'll have the information of all these 6 articles. Now, this is not something that is not ethical or anything like that. There's nothing like that. This is how you do an article review, basically. So as I told you, it is basically summarizing a story. So you go find 6-7 articles on that topic, summarize their findings into your article review or into your article. And that is basically what an article review is. As I told you, you can, as I mentioned here, the readers don't have to go through 5 articles to find the information. They can now just come to your article and they'll have the information of those 5 articles in one article. And what I would like to say is this type of research project helps you be creative. There is no specific format that you have to follow. Only 3 things that you need is an abstract should be there, an introduction should be there. After that, the remaining part of the article, you can write it as to however you want, however type you want. You want to write it as a paragraph, you want to write it in tables. It doesn't matter. You can be creative with the style of writing. Followed by that is a conclusion. So as I mentioned before, the violence against healthcare personnel that I wrote, what I did was I gave an abstract. I gave an introduction that talked about, the recent attacks and, the old government laws. And the next thing I did was I created a table which contained the information of the past 2 years major attacks against healthcare personnel. It was just one big table. It contained a serial number. It contained the year of the attack. It contained why the attack happened, what happened after the attack, and how did the government respond to it. All this information was in one big table, and that was it. That article just took me, literally, it took me 2 or 3 days to write. So you can write it however you want. And it helps you be creative, as I said. So there's no particular format, but a formula you can follow is you can give an abstract with keywords, introduction, summarize it in your style. You want to summarize the findings in a table, you can summarize it in a table. You want to summarize it in wordings, you can summarize it in wordings, etc., followed by a conclusion. So the euthanasia article, I gave you an example of my violence against healthcare article. I just summarized all the findings in one big table. My euthanasia article, all I did was after I gave the abstract and introduction, I gave a heading of America. I wrote a paragraph on their laws and their stance about euthanasia. My next heading was South America. Same thing, told about their stance, their history with euthanasia, and how they respond to euthanasia laws now. And I followed the exact same format for Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Canada, India, everything the exact same format I followed. And it's very easy to get done. So this is basically a brief into article review writing. It's very easy to write an article review. If you want to get a huge number of publications, I would suggest you write article reviews, because you can get done with a lot of article reviews within a month's time, and you'll have basically a vault of manuscripts ready to be sent for publication. And the plus point is it is still considered as a publication and a good publication in your CV when you apply for your residency, or US, UK, wherever you're going. It's still considered as a publication, so that is a plus point. I move on to the next type, which is a correspondence. Okay, so I'll just mention that if you guys have any doubts up until now, feel free to write it in the chat. Like, I'll go through it in the end, as I mentioned before. If you didn't understand anything I'm trying to say, or if something was not clear, you can mention that as in the chat as well, and I'll go through, I'll repeat whatever I said in the end. So the next step I'll go through is correspondence. Correspondence in simple terms is literally a letter that you write to an editor. And this is also another secret that is not known to a lot of UG students. This is literally writing a letter, how you study back in your 10th, 9th grade and all, the letter format you have to write for your English exams. It is literally that. And you can write one to the editor about a topic that is currently in medical news, and you can send it to the journal. And what I would like to state over here is, some journals require you to write a letter to the editor to an article that is already published in that journal as a response to that article, basically. Some journals don't have the specification. You can just write an correspondence to whatever topic you like that you have chosen. This is literally a day's work. Correspondence has a limit of 500 words. Okay, so that is why I'm saying it will take you 1 or 2 days, because it's a 500 word limit. Most journals, I would say like 90-95% of the journals have a 500 word limit. I've rarely seen journals saying 400, 450, 650 word limits. Usually it's 500 standard. They don't require an IEC. They don't require patient consent. And they can be done at home. And okay, so another one thing that you can do as well is, if there is a case report that you have sent to journals and it didn't get accepted, let's say 3-4 times, you can rewrite this case report as a correspondence in 500 words and then send it to a journal. It will stand a higher chance of getting published, because I don't know exactly why this happens, but it's a common thing that I've seen. If you write a case report as a correspondence and you send it to a journal, the journal will accept it as a correspondence, but not as a case report. Sometimes I've had a journal send that back to me as well. I sent a case report to a journal. The journal wrote back to me saying, if you can write this case report as a correspondence, we will consider it for publication. So immediately I went, I changed it. It took me 1 day to do this, and I sent it back. It took 2 months to get a reply, and it was accepted. Now, what I would like to say is, correspondence accepted at top level journals are at times more valued than publications at mid-level journals. And what I mean by this is, let's say, for example, you have a correspondence that is accepted at Lancet, that is accepted at JAMA, BMJ, BMC, NEJM. Whenever you apply for residency, those are any day considered more valuable than a publication that you have at a Q3 or a Q4 journal. And I would like to say that as well. Another thing that I would like to say is, I told you, for correspondence, you can literally write on any topic you want. I'll give you an example. I found this intern in LinkedIn. He had a correspondence published in Lancet. And, Lancet is one of the hardest, if not the hardest journal to get accepted at. And you will not believe me if I say this, but his topic of correspondence was the traffic situation at Bangladesh. Yeah, it doesn't even make sense that such an article topic was accepted at Lancet. It wasn't even a subdivision of Lancet. It was the Lancet main journal, and he wrote a correspondence about how the traffic situation is very bad in Bangladesh, and how the government is trying to change all this rules and all that. It was around a 500-word article that he wrote, and it got published at Lancet, which is why I'm saying you never know where your article will get published. Send it to any and every journal. You never know what the editor of that journal likes. You never know what he thinks is publishable in his journal. So don't stay back. Don't be like, okay, I never get a Lancet publication. I'm not going to send it there. Send it for the fun of it, because if it gets accepted, it gets accepted. If it gets rejected, you'll get especially at these top journals, you'll get a very fast rejection. So there is no time wastage. You'll immediately get rejected if you're having a rejection. It'll take like 1 day, sometimes 3 days, and you'll get an email back saying that you're rejected. So go for it. Like you're not gonna lose anything by sending it to them. Now the difficulty is, as I told you, it is a lesser valued publication. If you're getting a correspondence published at a Q3, Q4, and another applicant has a case report and article review at a Q3, Q4 journal, they would consider that applicant's publications more valuable than yours. But if you have a correspondence at a Q1 journal and another applicant has a case report or an article review at Q3, Q4, they will consider you more valuable. Now, this is only in the stance that it is one publication each applicant. If you have only one correspondence in a Q1 journal, but the other applicant has 5, 6 publications, but they are still in Q3, Q2, Q4, they will consider that applicant more valuable because he's having publications, while you only have one correspondence done. So it doesn't look that good on a CV as well. So you need to play it right, basically. Correspondence can't be published at conferences. So you have to keep that in mind. There's a limit of 500 words, as I told you. Rarely have I seen articles, journals asking for word limit of 600 or 450. My tips for correspondence, as I told you, choose a topic that is currently in medical news. And some journals, you will have to go to their website, go to the journal guidelines section in their website and see what their rule for correspondence is. Some journals strictly will only accept articles that are written in response to published articles in that journal. So for example, let's say an article was published in a particular journal where it's talking about, the change in abortion laws or something like that. And you can write a response to that article, talking about your findings and talking about your view of what you believe should be done by the government, etc. Okay. Always write your correspondence with facts and evidence supporting it. Suppose you have a hypothesis or you have a particular viewpoint, make sure that that particular viewpoint of yours is supported by medical facts or evidence. Don't just write a letter talking about, I believe in this, I believe in so and so, the government should be doing this, the government should be doing that. Don't do that. Always support it with evidence or medical facts. For example, if you write a sentence stating that, I believe the government should be more lenient about the abortion laws, immediately in the very next sentence, reference an article that has already cited or that has already mentioned this in their article. Okay. So the formula for correspondence is you literally write dear/respected editor. I would request you to write respected editor because you don't see many articles getting published dear editor, though there's nothing wrong with it. It's professional to write it as respected editor. Right, respected editor, comma, leave one space, next space, you can start writing your correspondence. You can write it in 3 to 4 paragraphs, keep a 500 word limit. Okay. I'll give you an example of a correspondence that I had written. Again, I written a correspondence back when, violence against healthcare personnel was on the rise in India. I wrote a letter to the editor of 3 paras, around 550 words, stating the same thing. My first para talked about how over the past couple of months, there has been an increase in the amount of violence against doctors, and the government didn't do much. And I referenced articles that was already published in India that stated this. Second paragraph, I gave a brief into the recent attacks and into the previous attacks. And again, as soon as I said this, I referenced articles that mentioned this in their report, in the published study in a country already. My last paragraph was basically what I believe the government should do and what the government is actually doing about it. Again, I referenced the article that already had this information. It doesn't have to be a published study. It could even be a news article that you have referenced. Just make sure that whatever you're stating has some evidence behind it or has some fact behind it. You don't have to always reference a published study. You could reference a government document. You can reference a news article. You can reference an interview. You can reference a book that has written a chapter about the specific topic. Anything. It doesn't matter what you're referencing, as long as you reference it and you have some evidence of what you're writing. And as I told you, sometimes you'll have to write an article in response to another article that is already published in the journal. I'll give you an example for that as well. So about a couple of months back, there was an article that was published in a journal that was talking about the influence of political and religious factors in getting COVID vaccine in the US. That article got published and I wrote a response to that article. Basically, in that article, what she said was that she found out that through her referencing all the studies and all that, that the hesitancy of getting a COVID vaccine was higher in Donald Trump supporters than Joe Biden supporters, and it was higher in the rural areas than the urban areas. So I wrote an article in response to her article, basically saying that, I agree with her views, and I referenced more studies stating the same thing, studies that have found that Donald Trump supporters are more hesitant to get COVID vaccine, and that the amount of deaths in the rural areas were higher because the amount of deaths in the rural area were higher among those who didn't get the COVID vaccine, etc., etc. Like that, I wrote one correspondence, and I think it took 3 months for the journal to reply back, and that got accepted as well. So go through journals, go through the published correspondence in those journals. If you like a topic that you find very interesting, that you're very interested to write about, write a response to that journal, write a response to that article. But the reason I say this is it's only a 500-word thing. It will take a day's time maximum, and you can send it back to the journal. If it gets published, well and good. If it doesn't, you can send it to any other journal. So it doesn't matter. You can always send it to some other journal and keep trying for it to get published. I'll move on to bibliometric studies. This is the second last type of study that I'll talk about. So all this talking is making me very thirsty. All right. So bibliometric studies, it's basically an original article that combines the reports, the findings of other articles. What I mean to say by this is basically you will write an article that will combine the study findings of the top 100 or the top 50 cited articles in those topic, and you will represent it using simple, like bar graphs and tables and all that. Let's take an example. For example, most common symptoms of COVID-19. What you do is you'll go and find the top 50 most cited articles of top 50 most cited articles talking about the most common symptoms of COVID-19. And, they will say in so many patients, they found this, they found that. They'll have all that data in their articles. You will write an article combining all that data into one table. So you have to go through those 50 articles. include all that information into an Excel sheet, then represent that information from the Excel sheet into a simple table or bar graph format. This is the best way to get an original article publication. The reason I say this is because this does not require you to get an IEC clearance. Journals will not ask you for an IEC clearance because there is no ethics behind, there is no particular ethic you have to follow for bibliometric studies because you're not getting involved in any human subjects in the study. And they don't require any patient consent form. You can get done with a bibliometric study when you're sitting at home with a laptop. All you need is a laptop or a tablet to get a bibliometric study done. During your initial stages, it will take a lot of time because it's difficult for, to get a grasp of how to do a bibliometric study. But you'll get the hold of it. Like I've not done too many bibliometric studies. I've only done, I think, 2 or 3 bibliometric studies. The first one took some time for me to get a hold of how to do it, but the second and third was a lot more easier because I already knew from the first one, the mistakes I made and whatnot. So it was easy for me to work on my second and third article. There's a vast number of topic choices for bibliometric studies. You can do a bibliometric study on literally anything and everything. What I mean by this is you can write a bibliometric study about, let's say, pancreatitis. You can do a bibliometric study about the total number of pancreatic articles about pancreatitis published in India. The top 50 pancreatitis articles published in India, you can do a bibliometry about that. You can do a bibliometry about the total number of COVID-19 articles published in India or the total number of COVID-19 articles published in Asia. There was an article published in BMJ, which was basically the total number of COVID-19 articles published in Africa. And that study didn't even have any, like the results section, all they said was, these many articles were published in this state of Africa. These many articles were published in this state of Africa. This author had the most number of publications. This author had the second most number of publications. The most common type of COVID-19 article that was published in the top 100 was was a retrospective study or a cohort study. And literally, I think like 5 findings was there. And then they wrote a very small section in the results, a small paragraph, and that article got published. So that's what I'm saying. You can write literally about anything and everything, a bibliometric study, especially. And because it is not a common type of research that people do, it makes it a very highly publishable type of research. Now, as I told you, it takes time. You can do a bibliometric study about the top 50 most cited articles on that topic you have chosen, but the top 50 gives you a 50% chance of publication. If you do a top 100 most cited articles on that topic that you have chosen, you stand a very high chance of getting published at a journal, because you will not find a lot of articles published on that topic, especially a bibliometric article on the topic that you have done. Bibliometric articles can be presented at conferences, and you will win at conferences as well. You stand a competitive chance at winning if you publish a bibliometric article, because especially if you're doing a good bibliometric study and you're combining a good number of findings from those top 100 articles, you will stand a high chance of winning. Difficulties is, as I told you, first time it takes time to understand how to do one. It takes time to get a hold of how to do a type of research article. And as I told you, top 100 is the higher chance of getting a publication. Our top 50 will give you a 50% chance of getting a publication. Now, my tips is, as I told you, vast number of topics to select. You can literally write, you know what, I'll give you guys a topic for free. You can write a topic about a bibliometric topic about the total number of COVID-19 articles and COVID-19 articles that is published in India. That's something that you can get published. If you're working on it, you can get it done and you can publish it. Or you can write literally the total number of a bibliometric article on let's say a bibliometric article, actually a bibliometric article on violence against healthcare personnel, the total number of articles about violence against healthcare personnel published in India, you write a bibliometric about that, that will also definitely get published. So what you have to do is you have to go to Scopus. And once you go to Scopus, you have to go to the search option, type your topic and the keywords of the topic. For example, if you're doing about COVID-19 and the total number of publications in India, your keywords will be COVID-19, 2019-nCoV, COVID-19 pneumonia, acute respiratory distress syndrome, MRDS, SARS-CoV-2. These will be your keywords. I'm just giving you examples. You type those keywords in the Scopus search, press enter, it will give you a list of articles. There'll be a filter option. Click on the filter option, choose top cited. Click on that, they will rank those articles from 1 to 100, depending on the number of citations it has. Make a note of those articles and open those articles, go straight to their data selection, take those data, enter it into an Excel sheet. So before you start this, you need to have an idea of what data you want to collect. So if you're doing about COVID-19 articles published in India, you could take data, for example, such as which state had the highest number of publications, which institution had the highest number of publications, which would probably be AIMS, but yeah, you can still do that. Which journal published, which journal had the highest number of publications in these articles, in these top 100 articles, which author had the highest number of publications, give the author's name and say this author had, in that top 100, he had 7 articles. You can write how many of these articles were case reports, how many of these articles were original studies, how many of these were correspondence. So these are just some ideas that I'm giving you as to the type of data you can extract from these articles. I've just given you very briefly, you can literally extract any type of data that you want. You can also include data of the year of publication, whether it was open access or closed access. How many males were there in the study, how many females were there in the study of these top 100. So you found out in the top 100, there were a total of 12,000 males and 10,000 females, and males were the most affected. All that you can include. I just gave you a very brief into it, but just for you to get some ideas as to what type of data you should go for with it. You have to go, take these top 100 articles, open each article, go to the results section, find the data that you want, enter into them in an Excel sheet. Once you're done entering the data for 100 articles, you need to then analyze the data, and you can just represent them as simple table format and simple bar graph format. For example, just create a table. Table's heading is the author with the most number of publications. Number 1, let's say random name like Simon has 7 publications. Number 2, Kumar or whatever has 5 publications, like that. That's all you have to do. Next table, just write the state with the most number of publications. So Delhi had the highest number of publications. Karnataka was the second. Kerala was the third. That's literally all you have to do for a bibliometric study. And yeah, but that's my last point. You can literally write a bibliometric study just containing information about the total number of authors in these top 100. So you found out in these top 100 articles that you've gone through, the total number of authors involved in these top 100 articles were 250 authors. You can mention that. You can write which state had the highest number of authors from, which state had the highest number of publications, which institution had the highest number of publications, which journal, for example, from these top 100, you found Lancet had the highest number of publications. You can write Lancet, 11 publications from these top 100. Next was JAMA, you found 8 publications. I'm just giving examples of what type of data you can extract. And that is basically a brief into bibliometric study. If you want an original article publication fast and you want it to get done easier than actually pursuing proper, this data collection, record-based original articles, you can try to get a bibliometric article done. And not a lot of students know this. So it's easy to get done, and you can get it published easily as well because it's valued highly, especially in journals. Systematic reviews. I will just give you a brief into systematic reviews because I myself don't have too much of an exposure to systematic reviews. And there is a very particular reason as to why I didn't get involved into systematic reviews, which I will come into later. So they're similar to bibliometric studies. However, the data is analyzed using statistical methods. When I say statistical methods, I don't mean simple statistical methods. I mean a bit more higher in, what do you say, in term or in value. It also counts as an origin article publication. It's very easy to publish a systematic review. It's valued even higher than a bibliometric study. And again, can be done at home. It does not require an IEC or patient consent. And the difficulties is, I have not mentioned the difficulty here, but the very first difficulty is a systematic review needs a team for it to be done. And you need to make sure that everyone in that team knows what they're doing. Everyone in that team should be competent enough to work with you and to get done with the study, because it is a very difficult type of study to take only because of the amount of analyzing that you have to do. It requires a very good knowledge of the statistical software and the statistical methods that you want to use. I would not recommend you take this up for your very first research project because you will be very clueless. You will not have too much of an exposure into statistics. So I wouldn't recommend you do this as your very first research project. And it is a very difficult project, and it is confusing, and it is a very confusing project. The more you do it, obviously it becomes much more easier, and it takes time for you to get a project done. Now, as I told you, the reason I didn't involve myself too much with systematic reviews is because personally, I found it so much more easier to write a bibliometric study and to get a bibliometric study done instead of getting involved with a systematic study. And most of the systematic studies usually are part of global research studies. You can do a systematic review in your medical school, but the reason I'm telling you not to do it is because it's difficult for you to do it. Like, at least don't do it in your first time. If you have some experience, then go for it. But most systematic reviews are done as part of global teams and big teams of like 50, 100 people. So there is a systematic review that I'm a part of now that is a team of almost 200 authors. So you can see why they need such a big number. Though it is a global study, yes, they involve huge number of people. So it becomes easy for you to get the work done. Right now, how to find a research topic? I've highlighted professors in bold, and there you go. They are your easiest way to get research topics. Approach a professor, as I've mentioning it again and again. Approach someone who has time for you, someone who is ready to support you, someone who is already involved heavily with the research. Approach them, show that you're interested, and they itself will give you topics. And the more you work with them, the closer you get professionally. And if you show to that particular professor that you can do a good work with research, you can write a good article, you will get research topics constantly. Especially with professors who are involved already in research, you should understand that they're already well connected in the community. They already will have connections, and they'll already be considered as a valued author in journals, which means journals will send invites to write articles to these professors. And most times what end up happening is professors won't take up article invites that they don't consider is like worth spending their time for. So you can get those articles. There's so many articles of mine where my professor received an invite to write for the journal, but he was like, I don't have time to write it, so I'm going to give it to you. You can write it. So you can do that. And it's a very easy way for you to get research topics, very easy way for you to find case reports, article reviews, because your professors always will have the best idea of what type of project you should pursue. Other than this, You can always come up with research topics on your own. As I told you, me coming up with the after ulcers, the mouth ulcer research, it was something that I came up on my own because it was something that I suffer with on a daily basis, or sorry, on a weekly basis. So it was something I was very interested in, and that's topic that I came up on my own. That is one way, you find something that you can relate to, find something you want an answer to, and pursue that topic. Another way is student organizations. Now, I will tell you why student organizations is important. I was able to get a case report from an individual in the UK who is already working in NHS. And it is a case report of surgery study of cancer of parotid gland. And I was able to meet this person from the UK where he's working in NHS through these student organizations. Now, I'm not going to name the student organizations, but I'm pretty sure you can easily find the most common types of student organizations, like Global Neurosciences Association. Make sure you try to network within that association. Don't just be a part of the WhatsApp group and, like peeping through the bush and, just reading the messages and then leaving it. Try to network within that organization. Try to join positions in this organization, because you'll be able to meet new people and you will never know who those people are connected to. This will help you connect to the person you meet as well as to that third person that the person you meet is connected to. That is how I was able to get that case report. I met this person through an association I was part of, and he introduced me to his professor who is working in AIMS. And the prof then I contacted the prof, and we worked on that case report, and it is done. It's currently in review at a journal. Then another one way for you to get research topics is through journal newsletters. You can go to these famous publishers like Elsevier, Sage Journals, JAMA, and you can subscribe to their newsletters. They will constantly put out every month. They will have calls for research articles. They itself will have a topic, like most journals will have a special edition every 3-4 months for a particular topic, and they will send out a notice to all those who have subscribed to these newsletters saying, hey, would you like to submit an article to a journal? We are holding a special edition. This is the topic. Feel free to write a case report, original article, etc., and we'll consider it for publication. That is another way. Journal invites, it's not something that you will get in when you begin research. So the more you publish, the more your research goes out there, the more people read your research. Journals itself will invite you to write for them. So they will send you an invite saying, this is the topic, would you be interested in writing for us? You agree, you write an article, send it to them, it will get published. They're not going to reject you because they themselves are inviting you to write an article. Now, research about a topic before you select it. If you're selecting a topic, check out if it has been published somewhere, where it has been published, how many times that particular topic has been published in your country, how many times that particular topic has been published in your state, etc. And then choose your topic. So if you find out, a particular topic has only been published like 5 times in your state and throughout India, like only 20 times, it's a very good study. It will stand a higher chance of getting published. So these are some common ways for you to find research topics. Now, how to publish a research? Again, I'm just going to go through it very briefly, because if I was to go in detail with this, it will take a lot of time. The most important thing for you to note over here is indexing. All right. Leave everything else in this PowerPoint except for this one word. The reason I say this is because if you are pursuing a residency in the US or the UK, I will explain for each of this, for each like US, UK, and India, I'll explain it separately. So when you go for residency in the US, as I told you in an ERAS application, you have to fill your research details. So they will tell you what is the title of your publication, the journal name, what is the link, and they'll give you a volume number, issue number, page number. Then there is one section that asks, give your PubMed ID. It is not a start section, which means it's not compulsory information, but PubMed indexing is very, very important for US residency. Even if you have an article that is not PubMed indexed, if it is indexed in another one, for example, Scopus, it is still fine. Like it is still good, but not as good as publishing in a journal that is PubMed indexed. So for US, that particular section does not have a star mark. So you can enter that, you can choose to enter or not enter. So if it is not a PubMed index journal, then you can't fill that detail in. If it is a PubMed index journal, well and good, you can fill that detail in. For UK, they only consider PubMed index journals. So when you go for UK, for non-training, it doesn't matter because you're just sending a CV. For co-training jobs, I told you about the research points, like, each, the research has points allotted to a publication, or 1 to 6 points will be allotted. They only consider a publication if it is PubMed indexed. You will be able to find this information in the journal's about section. So you go to the journal's website, there will be a section about the journal, or there will be a section called indexing and archiving. Click on that, go and check if it is PubMed indexed or not. If that information is not there, PubMed and Scopus indexed. Okay, if that information is not there, you can go to the PubMed website and you can just type of the list of PubMed indexed journals. When you'll get the first link, it will be a PubMed link. Click on that, they will give you a list of all the journals that are indexed in PubMed. See if that journal that you want to submit it to is indexed in PubMed or not. Now for India, most universities in India consider, so they consider Scopus more valuable here. At least in our university, all the professors try to do is get it published in a Scopus index journal rather than a PubMed index journal. But what you need to keep in the back of your head is when you undertake these projects, even though your professor wants it to be Scopus, sometimes, what will happen is like, you might have a journal that will be Scopus indexed, and it'll be a Q1 journal that is Scopus indexed, but it will not be PubMed indexed. You can submit it there, it will be a Q1 publication, but if you're going to the UK, it's not going to be helpful for you because it's not PubMed indexed. But if you're going to the US, then it doesn't matter. Might as well send it over there. But try to get it. If it's a Q1 PubMed index journal, then well and good. You're at the top. Like there is nothing that can top a journal more than that, basically, except for the name. Like, if it's a Lancet, NEJM or JAMA and all, then those are the very top. But otherwise, yeah. So as I told you, in India, at least in our university, they look at Scopus index journals more. There are times when, my prof has been like, submit it to this journal. I'll go to the journal, I'll check the indexing, it will only be Scopus indexed. So then what I will be like, I'll tell my prof like, sir, is it okay if I can submit it to this journal, which is PubMed and Scopus index? We'll try over there. If it gets rejected, then I'll submit it to the Scopus journal, a Scopus indexed only journal there. So you can try, try getting it a PubMed journal, then go into your second option, which is Scopus indexed. Now, the Q value, it doesn't matter at all for UGs. Okay, even for your residency, it doesn't matter if you get it into a Q1 or a Q4, as long as it is a publication, it's considered as a publication. This matters only when you go into fellowship in the US, and for UK, it only matters during your co-training time. Obviously, a Q1 journal is considered more valuable, but it's not going to make or break anything in your CV. So you don't have to look into your Q value, the impact factor, all those things. It's all secondary. As long as your journal is indexed in PubMed, indexed in Scopus, you can submit it to that journal. If it gets accepted, it's well and good enough. You don't have to be bothered about anything else. You don't have to be bothered about the Q value, impact factor, and all that. Now, when you're done with your manuscript writing, first thing you do is go to the website and go to journal guidelines. All right. When you, so go to the journal guidelines. Yeah. So go to the journal guidelines and see what that journal says about your type of research. So certain journals will have you write your manuscript in a particular way, but I'm saying it now, only be bothered about this once you're done with your manuscript. Like write your full manuscript. Then when you go into publishing, that time you go to the journal website, go to the journal guidelines, see what they are saying. For example, in a case report, they might say that we only want 5 images, but your manuscript might have 8 images. Then what you can do is you can just combine 3 of those images into one and put it like that. So that is what I'm saying. You can, do it later. You don't have to do it while you're doing your manuscript. Because what happens if you're following a journal guideline, for example, let's say you're planning to submit it to BMJ. BMJ states that, okay, so in BMJ case reports, the journal, they only allow maximum of 4 authors. They only allow, I think, 6 images and about 10 references or something like that. If you're preparing your manuscript on those guidelines, what will end up happening is, yes, you will be able to send it to BMJ, but if BMJ rejects you, then you'll be in trouble because you have to rewrite the entire manuscript for another journal. Because another journal might allow you to unlimited images. There is no restrictions in references, so you might as well make your article more descriptive. So prepare your manuscript, then go into the guidelines, look at the guidelines, then change your manuscript. Like make a copy of that document and make the changes into the copied document. You can use a website called Skimago. This website is very useful for finding journals. So you can just go to that website and choose the field that you want to publish it. For example, if you're writing a medicine topic, type medicine and list out all the medicine journals, and you can filter them as per Q value as well. So if you have a case report that you believe is not too great and not too bad, you can send it to a Q4, Q3. You have that option of selecting or like filtering journals as per that. If you're submitting it to a surgery journal, just type their surgery, it'll give you a list of all the surgery journals available. Okay. Another thing is asking your guide. Now, the reason I put this over here is sometimes your guide will have published a lot in a particular journal. What this means is that journal editor will know your guide and will know that he's already published in this journal before, and we have accepted his publications and it is good publications. So when you send your article with this guide's name to that particular journal, you will have a slightly higher chance of getting accepted only because of your guide's prior history with that particular journal. Some guides even have personal connections with the editors of a journal, though this is not allowed. It's all against the ethics and all. This happens a lot. You may be thinking, how a lot of these authors or professors get published in Lancet and get published in NEJM and all that. If a lot of the times what happens is, the editor of that Lancet or editor of NEJM knows the prof or knows the doctor, and because of that just one fact, they will accept an article. And you'll see many a times many irrelevant type of articles, or many articles that don't have any data, that is not really a good article, getting published at Lancet and getting published at NEJM. This is only because of that personal connection that is there. Though it is completely against ethics, it's something that happens, something you can't do, which is why I'm saying ask your guide. Sometimes your guides will know particular journals, that they've already submitted prior to, they might know an editor or something. You'll stand a higher chance of getting accepted at that journal. Now, the journal submission process, it varies from journals to journals. Most or majority of the journals have it linked to a website called Editorial Manager, and it is a very like dated website, I would say. Okay, and I'm not going to go too much into the submission process because it's different for every journal. But to give you a brief, it's basically they'll ask you for title information, abstract information, author information. They'll tell you to upload your documents, upload your images, image figures, and all that. It's something that you just have to go to the journal, click on submit manuscript, they'll link you to the website. You create an account at that website and just follow what it says on the screen. You'll figure it out very easily. Now, do not give up. Keep submitting your article to journals. Okay. Yes, it is very difficult. Like the very first time that you send an article, your very first article, you send it to a journal. When you receive that email of rejection, obviously it is hurtful a bit. It's something that everyone goes through. Even when I saw my first rejection, I felt very down, because I felt my article was very well written, and it's not something like you have done wrong. It depends on the mood of the editor. If the editor feels that your article is a great article and it deserves to be published in that journal, you'll get published. So keep submitting it to journals. I'll give you a very good example just for you guys to understand. The euthanasia article that I wrote, it got rejected, I think 6 times. Okay, it was rejected by Q4 journals. It was rejected by Q3 journals. And I only planned on sending it to Q4, Q3 because I felt at that time, that euthanasia article was not up to the standard of Q1 and Q2. I sent it to 6 Q4, Q3 journals, all of which rejected me. 50% of them desk rejecting me as well. But my 7th time, I sent it to Q2 journal and it got accepted. And that too, it was a SAGE journal as well, which was Pub and Ad Scopus Indexed. So exactly, so I'm just saying, like, you can just keep submitting it to journals. Don't give up. You never know where you'll get accepted. And I'll just tell you about what desk rejection is. So when you submit your article to a journal through that submission process, you upload everything, you review the PDF. When you upload everything, they'll generate a PDF for you. You download that PDF and it will contain all the information, your manuscript, your tables, figures, everything. Once you approve the PDF, the article will get sent to the journal. Now, the very first thing that happens after an article is sent to a journal is it undergoes a check by the editorial team that is of the journal, or an assistant. What they will check is they will check whether your article is adhering to their guidelines. As I mentioned before, like BMJ has, you have to write an abstract in a particular format. You have to include highlights in the case report as well, like as a separate section. So they will check if these things are there in the article. If it is not there, they will send you a mails and they will note out all the changes they have to make. You don't get rejected at this point. You have to note that. The first check is by an editorial team. It is not a check for acceptance or rejection. It is just a check to see that your article is written in a way that is as per the journal guidelines. Usually what will happen is there's two things that happen here. Either you'll get back a mail saying your article was unsubmitted because so-and-so changes have to be made. Kindly make these changes and resubmit your article. Okay, so you just have to go to the website. Your submission will already be there. You just click continue and make all the changes and submit it again. Second option is you don't have to make any further changes. Then the article will get sent to the editor. So now what the editor does is he will receive hundreds of articles. He'll go through these articles and the thing he will check is whether your article is of publishable value at his journal. Now this is where desk rejection comes into play. So when you send it to a journal, if the editor itself feels that it's not, it's a topic that is not relevant to his journal or his journal's aims and scopes, he will desk reject your article, which means your article does not even get passed on to the peer review process. It gets desk rejected, it'll come back to you. You'll have to submit it to some other journal. If the editor finds that your article is of publishable value, he will send it to a peer review process. Now, peer review can take any time between 2 weeks up until 2 months, 6 months, 1 year as well. BMJ has taken more than a year to reply to a peer review, to give you your peer review comments back. Peer review process is basically, they'll send your article to reviewers. We as reviewers will review the article. They usually will send it 2 or 3 reviewers. And the reason it takes so long is because when they send it to the reviewers have to accept the invitation. and then they have to sit and review the article and send back the comments. That is why it takes time. So they will send it to reviewers. Reviewers will go through your article. They will write comments. And so as a reviewer, we have options of scoring your article on a grade of 1 to 5. It changes from journal to journal. We'll be able to grade your article from 1 to 5, depending on whether we believe your article is fit for the journal or not. And so we'll score the article and we can give a final decision as to whether accept it without changing anything, accept it after changing, or recommend changes and or decline it. So this is how once the peer review process is done, you'll get an email. You can go to that same website where you submit it. You go over there, you'll be able to view all the reviewer comments. And basically, most of the majority of the time, if your article gets sent for peer review, I would say 70 to 80% of the time, it means that your article is accepted. Okay. Now, don't get joyful that it is sent to peer review and it'll get accepted very soon. No, like the case report that I had, it was sent to peer review. It took 3 months for me to get the comments back, and it was rejected at peer review stage, which is rare to find, but it happens. But all the other articles, once it's gone to peer review, it got accepted for me. So once you get these comments back from the reviewers, all you have to do is make the changes recommended by the reviewer. So the reviewer will say, correct your English here and there, add some more information about investigations, or give us some more detail about the patient's hospital stay, or give us some more clarification about how you went with your data collection. I'm just giving you examples of what the type of comments will be. All you have to do is, you make those changes to your article and resubmit it. Once you resubmit it, this edited article will come back to the reviewer. We will again go through it and see if the changes are up to what we want. We can accept it, or again, we can send it back to you. And if it gets sent back to you for the second time, again, you'll have to make the changes and send it back to us. Very rare to see it being sent back a second, and even more rare to be sent back a third time. Usually when it gets sent back to you the very first time, you make the changes and you send it to the reviewer. Almost all reviewers usually accept it, and you'll get accepted for publication. I have one article that was sent back 3 times, where I had to make changes 3 times. It's rare to see that happen. Usually most of them get sent back once, and then, I make the changes, you send it back, you'll get accepted. Now, I already mentioned this. The chances of you publishing at a journal is higher if you have previous publications there. It's more of a theory than a statement. Okay, as a theory that I've heard from other professors as well. They always say, because the editor believes that you're published in that journal prior, and if you especially have good publications in that journal before, then you have a slightly higher chance of getting published in that journal. All right. And okay, now we'll move on to the next slide. Yeah. So I've given just a list of journals over here that require no fee. Yeah, that reminds me. When you go into these journal searches and you go to the author guidelines, make sure you search for a thing called as APC. Its full form is Article Processing Charges. Some of these journals will try to be very sneaky and try to grab your money and run. They will not mention these article processing charges, but they'll word it in a very legally escaping way. They will just say, yes, it is. You can submit to this article. You can submit to this journal for free, but there might be some payment at the end of the publication process. So make sure you search this, because do not end up in a situation where you submit it to a journal, submission is free, they accept it, and then they ask you for payment, because then you'll be in a difficult situation, because your article is accepted and the journal is asking for payment. What do you do next? Don't end up in that situation. Make sure you search for journals that have no article processing charges, that are free to submit to, and there is no publication charges, no final publication charges, no submission charges, none of that. So I've just given a basic list over here. Sorry, I've just given a basic list over here. This is all through Schemago, that some of these journals that I've published it to as well. You guys can take a picture of this, and you guys can use this for reference later. Anything I need to explain in this? Nothing really. All right. Okay, so this is just, I've made a flowchart, a basic research timeline flowchart. You write your first draft, review it with your team or guide, write your second draft, or whatever, edit it as many times as you need till it is perfected. Check your plagiarism. Plagiarism has to be less than 10%. Some journals will allow you to push that. Some journals are not very strict about plagiarism. Sometimes they'll push it up to 20% as well, but the general guideline is 10%. Then research which journals are possible for submission. Go through the journal list, see which journals are you want to send it for publication. I would recommend you send it to journals that already don't have that similar topic published before. Even if they have a similar topic published before in that journal, make sure that your case stands apart from that article. Sorry, your article stands apart from that article. For example, if you're publishing, let's say like the mouth ulcer article, and I looked at the journal and I found out this journal also has a mouth ulcer article published, but he's only talking about symptoms. But in my article, I talk about symptoms, I talk about treatment, I talk about factors, I found associations. Then you can send it to the journal because your article stands different from that other article. Now, when you send it for a journal, edit the article as per your journal guidelines. Once you edit the article as per your journal guidelines, send it through the journal submission process. They link you to a website, submit it over there. Okay. Now, to summarize, professors are your best friends for research topics. Find a prof, annoy them, find someone who is ready to get annoyed by you and who's ready to work with you, who's ready to support you, who's ready to teach you. Something I need to explain or not emphasize is everything that you see in the slide was taught to me by my guides. There's not something that, I found out on my own. I found out all these things through working with my guides and through experience, and then working with other people. That's how I learned more. Okay. Focus on trying to get at least one original article published, especially if you're going for US, UK and all. If you have an original article published, you can get, as in UK, the point system is there for the original articles. It's there for all types of articles, but original articles have a slightly higher points. US also, try to get one done. It's not a make or break in your CV or your application. It doesn't matter. If you don't have no research at all and you still apply for residency in the US, it's okay. They're not going to reject you. But it's always better to have a higher edge than your competitors. Now, in your spare time, get working on case reports, article reviews, and correspondence, especially article reviews and correspondence, because they can be done very easily. They can be done very easily. They can be done very fast, and they can be published easily as well in journals. Now, the more and more you work on research, the more and more you develop a style of writing or a template. So you don't have to follow a particular template, but the more you work, you'll understand how to write a particular article. Network through organizations for global projects. So the global projects that I am part of were all through organizations that I am a part of. I got an opportunity to join these global projects only through these student organizations. They're not even professional like medical organizations or anything. They're all literally student organizations where I met people who were part of global projects and then joined global projects through networking, basically. Now, the more publications you get, the more publications that you eventually put out, the more reads you get, the more people cite your articles, you will eventually get invitations to become peer reviewers for journals. Journals itself will send you an email inviting you to be a reviewer for them. And this is a bit more later into your research stage. When you have a good number of publications, the journals will start inviting you to become a peer reviewer. You can also apply to become a peer reviewer at journals, and a lot of these journals require you to have publications prior, obviously, as expected. So you can send a CV to them and tell you are interested in becoming a peer reviewer, and you can send your CV, and if they accept it, you become a peer reviewer at that journal. So that's basically it about the types of research projects. I've tried to cover as much as possible to give you guys a brief idea into how you can get started, the easy types as well. If you guys have any doubts, I've given my email and my LinkedIn profile here. You can message me there if any doubts you have, or any clarifications you want. I'll now go through the chats, and I will try to clarify the questions asked in the chats. All right, give me a minute. If there's any further questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Okay, so Hiba has said, I've done an ICMR project in 2018, which was accepted, but my professor published it without putting my name. Can I get it published in any other format now? Okay, so no, it is not possible to have that done. And honestly speaking, I think that's a bit unethical to do, because usually the professor will publish it with the student's name, because the student does most of the work. Unfortunately, you can't publish it in any other format. It is not allowed to. It's against ethics. So if you, for example, now if you publish an original article, I can't rewrite that original article as an correspondence and send it as a correspondence to a journal. It's not allowed to. It's against the research ethics to do that. You should probably, you should speak to the professor and ask him why he has done that. It's not something I've heard of. All right. Reem has asked, can you share the link for GNA research applications, please? What is, okay, no, that's for that. All right. Okay. Heba has asked how to select journals to send the article reviews to. As I said, you can go through Schimago, Sage Journals, Elsevier. Then a couple big publishers is BMC, BMJ. All of them accept. You can use the Schimago website, PubMed, all these websites, and search your topic, and you'll be able to see the journal that you want, like journals that are accepting this, and you can send it to them. Okay. How do you decide if you should take a prospective or retrospective study, and which kind of study is better for the topic, like case control or RCT or cohort? Okay. If you're a medical student, do not take cohort study. All right. The reason I'm saying this is because you will not have time to do a cohort study in 3 years or 4 years. And that is considering you started in the first year. Cohort studies require you to have more than 5 years, like 5 to 10 years. Okay. So as much as you can avoid cohort studies, it is not easy to do. It's a very difficult study to do because, for example, if you're doing a cohort study on 50 patients, you collect data in 2023 from those patients. You need to have the contact details 5 years later to contact those patients and then collect data from them again to see what has changed. That's basically how cohort works. And it's very difficult to do that because not all patients will pick up the call. Some patients will get annoyed and not work with you. And it'll be difficult for you for 5 years to work on a particular project. Now, whether you should take prospective or retrospective study, that will depend on your research topic. It doesn't matter if you take a prospective or a retrospective study, as long as you can get the research done in the time that you have as a medical student, it doesn't matter. Okay. So the type of research study that you do will depend on your research topic. Okay. That's all I can say. Like, don't go into the topic saying I want to do a retrospective study and this is the topic. You can modify the study design as per your data collection method and the type of research topic that you're trying to do. Okay. Sarah has asked, what's the most trusted sources for medical news? Okay. So if you guys have up-to-date subscription, that is a good place to get medical news. Even newspapers you can use for medical news. Okay, so JAMA and BMC have their own news not newspapers, like they publish news articles, NEJM publishes. So you can use all these as trusted sources. Even Indian newspapers, like, the studies that I found out about the studies that I did about violence against healthcare personnel is all through newspapers like these Hindu Times and all that. I read those and I'm like, okay, you know what? This is on the rise. I think it's a good time to write an article about it. All right. Yara Pati Naini. Sorry if I murdered the name, but all right. At the end of the session, can you send the PDF of the slides that you displayed? Yeah, I will do that. I will send it to the association. Hopefully they can share it somehow. All right. If I'm right, Lancet, etc. charges a lot for APC, right? How do you manage that? How long does rejection acceptance process take? Okay, so Lancet does not charge for every article type. They have a lot of sub journals like Lancet Global Health, Lancet Technology, Lancet Digital Health, etc., etc. Some of these ones charge. BMC charges, BMJ has article charges. And how do I manage that is our institution luckily has subscription to these journals. So all we have to do is contact the library and they'll give us the code that we can use and it'll be free for us. But if you're in an institution that does not have access to these subscriptions, then don't look at trying to publish in this unless your author is ready to pay for it. I would suggest you don't pay from your hand because you're never assured a publication. So try to publish it into free journals, and there is a lot of free journals you can publish it to. There are many free journals that are Q1 that you can publish it to. Okay, you can send it to Lancet, by the way. I've sent articles to Lancet. BMC you can't, it's paid. You can send it to NEJM as well. JAMA is also free. All these ones are free. So you can just like try to research and find there's lots of Q1 articles, Q1 journals which are free that you can submit it to. Now, how long does a rejection acceptance process take? Yeah, there is no definitive answer for this. I really wish there was, but it depends on the journal. Some journals will reject, for example, Lancet, these top journals are very famous for rejecting you in 2-3 days. It's well and good because you can send it to another article immediately. But some journals will reject you after months, which is very painful. Like, they'll keep your article with them for 6 months. An article of mine was with a journal for 6 months at the editorial stage, like the editor check stage, and he rejected me after 6 months without even going into peer review process. So there is no answer as to how long a rejection or acceptance process takes. Sometimes your article can get accepted today and it will get published only after a year. That also happens. There are articles of mine that was accepted a year ago and are getting published in Jan and things like that. So as I told you, depends on the journal. Some journals will be very fast. You'll get rejection within a couple of days. You'll get acceptance within a couple of days. They'll publish your article within a month or within a week's time. So it depends on the journal. Hey, how do you check your work for plagiarism? All right. Now, this is also another one issue. The thing is, again, not everyone has access to the plagiarism software. So the plagiarism software that is used by majority of the journals is Turnitin. And Turnitin is only available for institutions to purchase. So you have to be in an institution to use the software, or you need to be working with someone who has access to the software. So see if your university has Turnitin. Majority of the universities will have subscription to Turnitin software because they encourage research, then you have to check. Then in this sense, you can just send it to whoever is concerned with operating the software. They'll check it and send it back to you. In case you don't have access to it, what I would suggest is there are some free plagiarism checking websites. You can use those, but it's still 50-50, but you have no other option. So edit your article as per that plagiarism, send it to a journal. If a journal rejects it for plagiarism, then you can just edit it and send it back. Usually they will not reject you and tell you not to resubmit it. They will reject you saying, your plagiarism is high. It is about 25%. Can you rewrite your article, bring it down to 10%, and we'll consider it for publication? Like they will say something along those lines. Okay. What to do if you have no ethics committee in your university? Okay. So this is also another issue that a lot of students face. What you can do in this case is there will be an ethics committee in your district or your state, and you can send your article to them. The problem with this is finding them and connecting with them. And if you don't have an ethics committee in your university, I would suggest you go and do type research projects that don't require you to have an ethical clearance. As I told you, bibliometry does not need one. Article reviews does not need one. Correspondence does not need one. Systematic reviews does not need one. You can do these type of research, because trying to get ethics clearance, if it is not there in the university, is difficult. I had a friend of mine who was in a university that didn't have an ethics committee. He had to contact the state ethics committee, and he had to send his article there to get it accepted. So that will be difficult. I would suggest you work on articles that don't require an ethics clearance. Okay. What the patient consent is in another language than English. Like for a patient who doesn't understand English, what to do at that point for the case report. All right. So you can have the patient, you can, okay, so this depends on the journal. Some journals will have a downloadable format in their author guidelines. They will tell patient consent format, PDF download that PDF, and it will already be a structured document where you just have to fill in details. It does not matter if you fill in details in Hindi or any other language that the patient is in, as long as the patient signs it, it doesn't matter. BMJ has an option of downloading the patient consent in a language that you want. And they have a huge list of languages. Almost majority of the dialects of India are covered in that. So these are two things. If a journal has already a structured format, you can fill it with the language that the patient understands, have him sign it. If the patient doesn't know how to sign it, you can give a thumbprint as well. It's fine. But if a journal has an option of downloading it in that particular language, fill it like that. Now, for example, if both of these options are not there and you have to write the patient consent on your own, write it in a Word document, so write a good format and have the patient fill in the details in a language he or she understands to read and write, and have them sign it or give a fingerprint. If someone has a case report, so Jia has asked, if someone has a case report from X hospital and they want to work with authors from other countries, does it work? Yeah, you can do that. As I told you, like the surgical case report that I have, the prof is in AIMS, I am in Mangalore, and one author is in Chandigarh and the other author is in UK. So as long as you guys can collaborate with each other and do it, it's fine. So in our situation, we all gave the information. I wrote the article. I have the ethics committee in my university itself, so I could get the ethics clearance from my side. The prof got the patient clearance from his side, and the UK author helped us get in contact with editors to submit the journal. So you can do that. All right, so that's all the questions then. There any other questions you guys want to ask? You can ask. I think that's it then. So hopefully I've covered a brief into the research and how you guys can get started. As I told you, here's my email and LinkedIn. You can contact me if you guys have any questions. If you guys want to ask me anything, you have any doubts in the future or whatever, you can ask me. I'll be more than happy to clear it. All right. So hope you guys enjoyed the session. Hope it was informative for you. And yeah, have a great day.
Thank you so much, Doctor. It was a very insightful session. And I love how you covered so many different types of projects and, with so much detail. I'm sure everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the attendees as well. Please make sure that you fill in the feedback form to receive your certificate for today's workshop. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you.